welcome to the first episode of It's Personal, an entrepreneur podcast. A lot of people like to throw around the phrase, it's business, it's not personal. But to any entrepreneur out there, whether you're just starting out or already successful, we'll tell you that is in fact very personal. Every entrepreneur has a personal story of failures and successes, a story of personal sacrifice, a personal belief system, and a personal definition of success, both in business and in life. This podcast will interview and dive into the mind of entrepreneurs and what makes business personal to them. Entrepreneurship can at times be lonely and tough. We want this to be a place where we get into the nitty-gritty stories of entrepreneurs and provide relatable motivation to every entrepreneur that is out there fighting the good fight each and every day.
Yep, and as real estate professionals, we're going to also spend some time talking about the real estate market, our multiple real estate businesses, and asking our guests from various backgrounds in conclusion how they currently feel about the real estate market and the business that we have going on, so we can kind of relate these varying backgrounds back to real estate and what their view is to get a well-rounded idea of how people are feeling about the real estate market right now. So let's get right into it. We got our hosts, me, Kurt Fadden. We got Mike McCabe, a.k.a. Crazy Mike, which I'm sure by the end of this podcast you'll be fully aware of why we call him that, and Andrew McKelvey. So I think today we just really want to start by doing a couple of things, getting to know the hosts, number one, talk a little bit about our business and what we have going on, the multiple businesses we have and as they relate to real estate. Talk a little bit about the current state of real estate right now, which is a hot topic because there's a lot of things changing in the real estate market, a lot of things shaking up, and it takes the strong to survive in real estate right now. And then we'll close by announcing our first guest for our episode 2, and we'll close out that way so you guys can be hanging on to hear who we're going to interview next time around. So I think a good place to start is letting everyone talk a little bit about their background and how we got to where we are now, as well as your individual personal connection to entrepreneurship and this podcast and why we started it. So I think, Mike, why don't you kick it off? Just a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you're at and why you wanted to start this podcast.
Well, I came here through the Witness Protection Program, as everybody knows. Just don't tell everybody. I don't know. Entrepreneurial spirit is really, it took me at a very young age. I knew right away that the most powerful mechanism that this country has to offer is capitalism, and the root of that is entrepreneurialism. So whether it was selling candy in junior high to make money just so I could buy chocolate shakes and pizza instead of bringing that bag lunch my mom would make for me, it was always a magic to me. And to see your efforts pay rewards, it just took root. And, I love what we do and what we're doing and look forward to more of it.
So obviously, me and Andrew are pretty aware that you have like a pretty diverse work background, right? But for those people that don't, I think you kind of have an interesting story and some pretty cool jobs that you've had. Why don't you go through like a little bit about that, just like,
Sure.
Some of what led you to where you are now and some of those varying different jobs you had. And obviously you've had a little bit more history than me and Andrew.
What are you trying to say, I'm old?
Well, a little bit, yeah. I think that's a fair statement.
With age comes wisdom.
That's right.
Yeah. We did think about naming this podcast Two Dudes and an Old Guy.
That's right. That's true.
I mean,
thankfully, I won out. And just for the record, the Witness Protection Program was a joke, just for all the people out there who aren't humor related. Boy, my work history goes back to shoveling snow, cutting grass, working at an ice cream stand in high school. Majority of my career was in retail, sales, and management, as well as advertising, business to business. So I've had a flavor of, business to business as well as, direct to consumer. And both of them have their strengths and benefits, and they both teach you a variable degree of lessons.
Yeah.
Ultimately, all salespeople, in my view, are service oriented. You are there to facilitate a process and provide a feature and a benefit to the end user of your product, whether that's advertising or home furnishings, whatever that might be. Restaurant, your server is there to facilitate that process and to identify the needs of your clientele should be, in my view, the basis for any sales process. If you don't know what your customers are looking for, how can you begin to provide that product, good, or service in relation to that? So I've done everything from retail. I've built my own small subdivision. I was a carpenter. I've had a wide array of professions. But
in a weird way, honestly, like a lot of it, even though unrelated, even like furniture sales, building the development, stick framing, all those different things you've done, in a weird way, they kind of all relate back to what we're doing. Because that sales, that marketing, that construction background, it all kind of well rounds you for what we're doing now to a degree, I think.
From the structure of a building to the interior design, really does play to what we're doing. Creating that picture, that vision for the end user of the product or the investor who's looking to buy a flip property, to provide ideas, whether it's, creating a new structure of the interior of a building or the cosmetics of paint and lighting fixtures, things like that. It all plays into what we do. So
yeah. And we'll get
right. I agree.
We'll get into in a little bit like what each of us kind of do in our business, and I think people will understand then what we mean. But Andrew, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you ended up here?
Yeah, for sure, guys. Super excited about this podcast. Excited to continue growing with the three of us and broadening our horizon and putting new things on our plate. I know personal connections and meeting people in the community is important to us. So I think putting something out there like this, doing something a little uncomfortable is going to be something that grows us in great ways. So for me, kind of like Mike said, it goes all the way back to elementary school, middle school, high school. Just figuring out ways to get a few bucks so I could find something at the gas station on the way home. At lunch period at school, I always wanted to go to the C-store and get a couple of those fresh baked cookies. And so I needed a couple dollars. My mom wasn't going to give me $3 every day. That adds up at the end of the week. So, I had to figure it out between first and second period how I was going to get my cookies that day. And then leading into actually getting jobs, in the restaurants. Living here in Panama City Beach, obviously we're very tourism driven, working in the hospitality industry, the service industry, bussing tables, serving tables, bartending.
I think people greatly undervalue how well like service industry plays to real estate or just really like anything customer facing.
Yeah,
Like sales, customer service, how you show up. Even no matter like what state you're in that day, if you really want to do well in the restaurant business, you have to show up.
Well, and absolutely, and I agree with that. And even after I got my real estate license, after college, after working a 3-year corporate job traveling the country with a computer software company and car dealers, when I dove into real estate full time, I went back to a restaurant. And I was a full-time bartender at night, selling real estate during the day. And
in fact, a story that most people might not know in that regard is that when Andrew left his corporate job and was selling real estate, first got his license, he was bartending at Firefly, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And I was still traveling for work, so when I would come back on Thursdays and Fridays, and my wife would still be traveling for work and not in town, I would go sit at the bar there and eat and have drinks. And that's how we got to talking, and honestly, ultimately, how we ended up being partners, right? Like, I saw him selling real estate, working at the bar, hustling. I was wanting to leave my job and go into doing real estate, and that's honestly kind of how we connected, was sitting at a bar while you were, doing your thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We, connect through conversations. No matter where you're at, no matter if you're just at the grocery store trying to get your fruit and your gallon of milk for the week, you never know who you're going to catch in the line checking out and what conversations you're going to have. So yeah, I mean that really drove our relationship from me working behind the bar and you sitting on the other side of the bar, just small talk. One week led to the next week, and ultimately here we are owning an office and running some awesome businesses and trying to continue growing ourselves. So I just think no matter what part of the business you're at, everybody's got an important part. And I learned that, bussing tables. You can't run a restaurant without your busser. You know, a lot of the people put the busser and the dish man, you know, at the bottom of the totem pole, and it's like, well, without that dishwasher, you don't have dishes. And I bet you if you run out of dishes at 7:30 on a Friday night, you're gonna wish you had that dishwasher. And so you got to understand that in business that no matter what your role is, you are important, you are valued, and you got to do it to the best of your ability because everybody else's success relies on that. So
I think you just hit on a great point. It's all about relationships. The root of any relationship is being relatable.
yeah,
So as serve people or salespeople, we have to be relatable. The easiest way to create a bridge or a connection with somebody is to have something in common. So find what's relatable and you build a relationship.
Off of
What is
yeah.
that old Amway sales tactic you always talk about, Mike? It's we use it on every appointment we go to.
Well,
it's an acronym.
it's a basis of a lot of my sales strategy is FORM. It's FORM, means family, occupation, recreation, message. So the most important thing in
That's it. Yep.
the majority of people's lives obviously is their family. But in business, we talk about people's jobs, or then you transition into the personal lives about talking about maybe a sports event or their hobbies, what they did over the weekend, what they did last night for Halloween or whatever it might be. If you can talk about family, occupation, and recreation, obviously the most dear is family, you'll let your client or your prospect will then turn and open up to you and allow you to deliver your message.
Yeah, so true.
FORM, form, family, occupation, recreation, message.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do it seamlessly. If I didn't know you were doing it, you almost can't even tell that you do that conversationally.
It's like you just said, it's not even a strategy anymore.
It's become like second nature.
It's
yeah.
second nature.
And it has to. Yeah, it has to be kind of like your inclination to.
Now, I'm not going to say how old I was, but I implemented that strategy probably 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's
Longer than you
there.
boys have been born.
Yeah, if that gives you any idea on the age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, lots of wisdom. So yeah, and then so for me to introduce myself a little bit, I have a little bit of a different background, transparently, but it really drove me to where I am now. And my grandfather and my dad, I was very blessed to grow up in a pretty good situation, and they owned a technology company together. And with that, I still remember walking home. Or to my dad's office. It was very close to my middle school, and they had kind of semi-retired and sold the company. But my grandpa would be in his office, tracking stocks and doing all kinds of things in that regard. And he would sit me down and explain to me what he was doing and ask me questions that I, obviously had no value to me then. But over time, I realized, although I felt like a little bit different and my upbringing was like a little bit different and boring to a degree in those regards, that him and my dad were having conversations with me and teaching me things that would serve me well when I became a lot older. So, in that environment, I really got an entrepreneurial bug. And my grandpa and dad would always say they're serial entrepreneurs. And they kind of taught me what that meant over time and included me in some things that they were doing. And, my grandpa came from very humble beginnings, 8 siblings, a military dad, not a lot, not really even a pot to piss in growing up. And the story that most people don't know is that, he double mortgaged his house, he leveraged his family, he lived very stressed, he bought out his partners in that business, and he believed and pushed forward. And that's how he became, well off like he is now, and provided, that opportunity for me and a lot of my siblings and my family to have a better life. But, they really taught me to take risk and to bring other people along with you. And I have, similar to you guys, we all have a sales background, a real estate background, and we've converged that into our business that we talked about. But, I'll be forever grateful to them for taking the time to sit me down and kind of, send me on that path to a degree. So that's enough about us, though. I mean, let's talk a little bit about our current business and what we're working on and what we do. So we do a couple things. Obviously, Andrew and I are licensed realtors, and we've been partners in real estate for a long time. and we started a house flipping business, or like a boutique development group, and we now have a general contractor in house and are starting to do some spec houses and builds. But really, what it stems from is us rehabbing properties together, and we've built a business around that. And me and Andrew, we were buying properties from a wholesale company to find good deals with solid ROI. They're not easy to find, and that's how we met Mike. He was working for another wholesale company. One thing led to the other, and he decided that company wasn't the right fit for him anymore. And we had lunch and decided, hey, we should start wholesaling, cut out the middleman for our business, and brought him on board to run our wholesale division. And that's really the gist of kind of what we have going on here. We're like a full service real estate company. We invest, we hold, we wholesale, we retail, and we develop. And we have big plans for the future too. But I would just love to hear kind of, we've kind of segmented this business out to a degree, and let Mike talk a little bit about what he does and what the wholesaling business is all about, what that business is called, what our core beliefs are, that kind of thing.
The business is called Property Partners, or 850 Property Partners. Really at the core of what we do is helping all parties involved, whether that's a property owner or an investor. We handle difficult properties and difficult circumstances, whether it be someone struggling with health issues, trying to liquidate assets to have care or even end of life care, to a divorced couple that can't necessarily communicate very well, who want to get through a process a little simpler, or that rat infested, moldy, tear down property that is on the schedule to be bulldozed, and then helping the property owner overcome those liens and those issues with the municipality and those struggles. But I work with investors, finding properties for them to rehab, as well as finding properties for our sister company to rehab. And that's how I met these fine gentlemen right here.
Yeah, so and we'll touch on it a little bit toward the end too, but real quick, it's no secret that in the retail real estate world, there's a little bit of like distaste, I guess you would say, for wholesaling. What do you think that we do differently to combat that? And if there was one thing that you wanted retail real estate agents who don't know a lot about wholesaling to understand about us and what we do, what would that message be?
Well, I mean, initially I just say wholesaling is preliminary of every product sale process. Whether you're buying a can of Hunt's spaghetti sauce in your grocery store or a car on a used car lot, every product starts with a manufacturer, or at least most products start with a manufacturer. They go to a middleman, which is the retailer, and then to the end user. So we find real estate that we'll call wholesale. Typically those properties need significant amount of work, whether it's a new roof, it might have a cracked slab or foundation. You could have a hoarder involved, but typically the properties need a significant amount of repairs. So those properties you can't usually get a mortgage on. Some you can, depending on the condition. So we find these properties that are in disrepair, and we try to find a company like ourselves that will go in, rehab the property, and bring it back to its former glory or new glory, and put it on the market for a new family to either own it or an investor to rent that property out.
In a way, I feel like we kind of help move the process forward, because we're really helping someone in a distressed situation who may be indecisive and doesn't know how to go through that traditional listing process and has a very an anomaly of a property with a lot going on. And we help move it to an investor, someone like ourselves, or possibly a partner who's going to rehab it and make a better situation for the community and someone to live in. So I feel like we kind of push that process of enhancing the community forward a little bit.
Prime example is the first transaction we did together before becoming business partners. It really changed the tone of the whole neighborhood from a property that was in plight condition to the shining star of that block.
Yeah.
The nicest, newest, freshest looking property in that whole, area, neighborhood, I would say. It really changed the whole tone, and the neighbors were so thankful. It increased the value of all the area real estate and property.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
it makes a dramatic impact. And it's a little different. A lot of these properties, wouldn't be listed through
They can't
traditional.
go retail.
Yeah, they can't go
and
retail or traditional.
That's kind of where I think that the miscommunication is between licensed realtors and wholesaling. Is it's not necessarily that the wholesaler, in my eyes, is doing anything immoral or wrong or unethical. It's just that your traditional real estate agent doesn't know how to deal with this process.
Well, and I think it goes back to this to a degree too. On the point, I think you're hitting on a good point. There is any profession can be done unethically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the truth of the matter is every profession, whether you're an attorney, a doctor, a real estate agent, whatever you're doing, you can do it unethically.
Yeah,
But
it's about the individual.
We can do wholesaling transparently and explain the process to people and give them choices. I think that's a positive, not a negative.
And I think that's a big thing about what we've got going on, just inside of our four walls is Mike, before we had this all happening with ourselves, when you were still with your former employer, maybe it wasn't as transparent. Maybe sometimes the strategy, to your point, maybe the sales process and the way that they want to transfer that information to the seller, maybe just wasn't
all there.
the right communication. And I think that's a big thing that we're doing is we can go in with these clients and say, look, there's really 3 or 4 options. We can come in and look at it for ourselves and give you that number. But obviously we're going to have our margin on the backside, and we'll be transparent about what that looks like and what we feel needs to be done. Or we can partner with somebody and wholesale the property and, be transparent on how we get paid in that situation, how us dealing with the title and the closing documents and basically working through that process for you, how it pays at the end. Or we can go retail. We have no issues listing it as a traditional retail transaction, and we can walk you through that process and how that works, and but and so, as we know, a lot of these properties, they can't get loans, they can't get mortgages, banks aren't going to mess with them, FHA and VA aren't going to do anything with them, so it really pinches those people. So to be able to give them that conversation and give them that knowledge and say, look, you can make the choice, it's on you. But we just want you to understand how all 3 of these options work and what that means for you as far as timeline and the bottom line of what you walk away with. At the end of the day, for most situations, they want to maximize what they can walk away from the situation with, while also erasing that headache from their everyday life. So, and that's where, form, that acronym comes in. Again, before you start pitching these messages, figure out why they want to release the property. Are they unhealthy? They need to pay for medical bills. Have they been in tax situations for the last several years and they can't pay back taxes? What is their motivation to release that? And then that helps them understand what route they want to go. And so I think that's a huge part of being able to give that message to them.
Yeah. I can't agree more. Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. And I think that's a flavor that, has been exciting with bringing Mike in, is he's kind of getting to change some of those things here that he maybe did or didn't appreciate about his former employer. We're doing things a little bit differently, which I think is fun.
Which really at the root is the ability to offer solutions is what makes this organization honorably, ethically.
We can give you the solution ethically
unique.
and honorably and unique, and no matter what route you choose, we're here and happy to help you with that.
Absolutely.
And I think something, to any realtor that feels like wholesaling might be unethical, or even just doesn't really understand it, I would encourage them, reach out to a wholesaler, ask questions, research it yourself, and you'll find out that it's actually a tool that can help some people that you work with. And I truly believe that. I think there's certain people out there who are closed-minded, and they're going to be closed-minded irregardless of what they look into, and they believe what they believe. And to those people, I consider you a cold and timid soul, because you're not gonna develop and get skill sets that can help people further beyond that lane that and I think that if you're interested in it, look into it. And another thing too is something that makes us very powerful, I think, is we actually have a capital partner who can buy houses. We actually buy houses. And I'm going to say that again. We actually buy houses with cash. We're not just advertising that we buy houses with cash to get a wholesale lead. We actually buy houses with cash. We renovate them. We invest. We have rental properties. And so, sometimes wholesaling is a better option because we have too many projects going on, but we are not false advertising. We in fact buy houses with cash, and we have the capital backing to do so. So Andrew, quickly, because we're running a little bit short on time here, but talk a little bit about your segment, like minute or less.
Yeah, for sure. So Mike already hit on property partners. Multiple avenues. Figure out where we want to go with those clients. If they fall in my side, that's our sister company, Enhanced Development Group. It's a little boutique development group that we've started here in Bay County area. And I really had that side up because, growing up, my father was a general contractor, so I grew up in construction zones, building houses with him and learning a lot of that trade from him throughout my childhood. And I really enjoy that. I'm a real hands-on person. I like to be in the job site. I like to work with those guys. So for me,
yell at them too.
yeah, and so for me, hey, you got to get the job done. I mean, a big part of it's timeline. So, but for me, I typically head up, materials and subcontractors and, some of the guys that we've got that we work with that do, small labor for us. And so my side of the business is to make sure that the projects that we pick up from different situations, make it from start to finish in a timely manner so that we can offer that product to an end user to enjoy a home. And again, ethically, go in and do it right. Clean it up. Give them what they need to have a good structure to live in and not have to worry about it,
Yeah.
Obviously around here, everybody from the Bay County area and the Panhandle knows what Hurricane Michael did to us back in 2018. So taking care of those properties that still to this day are sitting around town and doing it the right way so that you're not just putting lipstick on the pig. You're actually giving somebody a quality home to live in so that they can have a good life and keep doing what they need to do outside of their home.
And it's a huge component of our business, delivering like a end product. And again, going back to like the wholesaling thing, we're not just wholesaling. We're actually buying properties, rehabbing them, and reselling them, and delivering excellent finished products to end users. And then, my role in the business, I'm kind of, it's hard to describe exactly what I do to a degree, I guess, but I day-to-day focus on the retail side of our business and listings and our buyer clients. But I also do all our finances. I head up our marketing, and I kind of deal with like the big picture vision of what we have going on and integrating the parts between all of those things. And so I wear a lot of different hats, but I would say I also get pulled in from them where they need me to be, and we all wear hats and flex between the sections of our business as needed. So I want to talk real quick about one question. It's going to be like 30 seconds or less each person. Andrew, we'll start with you. Why entrepreneurship and not a W-2 job? Because obviously, listen, this is the truth that nobody really talks about is it's financially very stressful at times. It looks like we're doing a lot of stuff, but we get paid in arrears. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of uncertainty. Sometimes we lose money. Sometimes we make money. You got to budget differently. That's just the truth of this game. So why this and not something more stable?
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to my background, I went to Troy University. I've got a bachelor's degree in international business administration. And straight out of college, I took that corporate job. Back in 2017, I went corporate, and I worked, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, in a computer software company and car dealerships. And so I spent about 2.5, almost 3 years of my life straight out of college traveling all over the country. Went to 27 different states, put 65,000 miles on a car, and took 57 flights on a Monday through Friday trip. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I made a lot of great connections, people I still talk to this day. But it was hard for me. I couldn't settle the way that I wanted to settle, start a family, enjoy my life, have life outside of work. It felt like it never shut down. The emails never stopped coming, and the expectation from the employer just continued to grow. It almost feels like for me in the corporate world or in the W-2 world, you sometimes get punished for being a good employee.
Yeah, it's like that control of time factor.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a punishment to be the good employee.
And it doesn't always mean like you're going to have more free time, but you can control when you have the free time to a degree.
Yeah.
You have a say-so over it, which I think, control of time is huge. It's like that freedom aspect.
Absolutely. Being able to start a family and, I recently just got married and, being able to have that freedom to, go do this, go do that, be it my son's, sporting events or school plays or whatever it may be, not having to feel guilty about that, not having to tell somebody that, I'm sorry, I want to go to my son's football game tonight. And then them kind
Absolutely.
of making me feel bad for it. So, for me, the risk has always been there. I always worked commission jobs throughout high school and college. A lot of how I've always been paid through my life before that corporate job was based off of work ethic. And if you don't work, you don't get paid. Working on the beach out here, tourism, it's 100% commission. It's 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, for about 7.5 months every year. And you work every day for 7.5 months. And if you're not out there hustling and making relationships and
You're not
talking to
getting
people
paid.
each and every day, you're not getting a paycheck at the end of the week. So,
Facts.
I did that for 8 years. It put me through college. It got me my degree, and it was hard, but it was well worth it for me because it taught me a lot, and it makes me appreciate the value of money and freedom and internal peace and knowing what I'm doing. So for me, that's really the important part for me.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I agree that control of time, the freedom to set your hours, and even if that means you work 7 days a week, being able to take that afternoon or that day off to do something with your family when it's important matters to me too. What about you, Mike?
I just believe entrepreneurship is the root of the American dream. That's really what propels this country and put this country on the map, is the spirit of the individual who takes all the risk, and gets that reward, which can be multi-generational as far as setting the foundation for
And people
your
don't.
namesake.
People don't talk about that a lot. Is the risk has a lot of reward, but a lot of times people don't talk about that downside either.
Yeah.
And that's where you got to have a little bit of gumption to take the leap. I think there's a lot of upside, but there's a lot of downside too.
You look at the landscape of successful entrepreneurs, and typically they've had a multitude of failures. I always tell the story of, I'm an avid chess player, and I went to this chess group for 2 years, and I lost every game except for one. And in business, all you need to do is win one time. You may have a lot of failures.
Yeah.
So
You only
I
have
was
to get it
playing
right once.
a chess master. I should preface that. I was playing a grandmaster chess guru or whatever, and I was just a little peon. And I remember the one game I beat him, and that was with a 3-move knight to king fork, and I took his bishop and he laid down his king, and the game was over. So I still remember.
Yeah.
But that's really that excitement that I just felt about remembering that is the success of entrepreneurship. The trials, the struggles, the wins, the losses, all of it to make an impact on other lives. That's the benefit of business, is really helping other people. And if you keep that as the focus of your business, you will be successful.
Yeah.
You may not find the optimum, level of success that you dreamed of, but you will find success, whether that's continue that operation or start another operation that'll reach its pinnacle.
Yeah.
Helping others achieve their goals is the greatest form of love, in my view, is self-sacrifice to help others achieve their optimal success, and you will be successful.
And it can be very financially rewarding if you can make those things
Absolutely.
meet up too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me, honestly, it was just kind of a combination of the two things. Like out of school, I was in regional management and sales, and at a pretty young age, I had the opportunity to manage upwards of like 150 plus people, and that was a great learning experience. But very quickly, I became very disenfranchised with the politics of corporate America, and growing up, going back to what I was saying, growing up around my grandpa and my dad and their ideology as entrepreneurs and how they ran their company, it was like so polar opposite. Everything was politicized. It wasn't about productivity or efficiency or a result. It was all about the rules and this way or that way. And to be transparent, I have a very strong personality, and I butted heads pretty hard. Now in hindsight, 2020. I was part of the problem in that situation too. I don't think I addressed all those situations perfectly, but I just knew I wasn't going to fit into that mold. And so although that's a huge risk and at times not very financially rewarding, being an entrepreneur, something a lot of people don't talk about, to Mike's point, more failures than wins most of the time. And you just hope over time the wins amount to more than what the failures resulted in.
And you learn along the way.
And you learn. But I would rather be doing that, stressed to the max every day, than having someone tell me to follow a rule, even if it wasn't what was best for a business or moving forward or helping other people. That's just not a confine I wanted to work in. Now, listen, I think being a W-2 employee has power, and we all need employees to work within our companies. And I think entrepreneurs are an important part of corporate America and what makes the world go round. I just knew that wasn't the role I wanted to lead and be partnered with people who wanted to lead and come up with kind of creating their own situation. And that's how I ended up there. Real quick, we're gonna close out here because we're coming to the end of the show here. Let's talk about real estate right now. Real estate right now. I think the hottest topic we can talk about right now is probably consumer interest rates and mortgage rates. I know consumer interest rates are at like 5.25 to 5.5% right now. Inflation's at like 3.7%. And we got mortgage rates that, they fluctuate, but I think the latest thing I read was that they were at 7.1%. And us being in the industry, talking to title agents and consumers, we know that most of the time it's coming across the closing table at 8-9%, not really 7% on things that are really closing. Consumer goods are up. You got groceries, electric, household goods. They're projecting that with inflation up, rates up, that consumer spending will continue to decrease. So all that being said, all of the businesses we just talked about that we're in are affected by that. A lot more uncertainty in the mix. What's your kind of take? And we'll make this very bullet pointed and quick, but what's your guys' take on what all those things mean for us and where things are heading? If you could give any like one piece of advice to kind of like calm people right now in the midst of that, what would that be?
This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Our country has a history of ups and downs in the real estate market and business in general. But as this market finds its position moving forward, you need to find your individual position of what you need to achieve or have happen. Whether you need to sell or you need to buy, you still need a place to live. You know? And that doesn't change the fact of the interest rates or the economy in general. You need a roof over your head. And some people need to sell. And it's not necessarily the optimal time to sell, but it's better to sell now than when this market hits the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's better to buy now than when you're homeless. You need a place to live.
And the other thing too is
It's better than renting.
There's all options out there too. For buyers, there's and even sellers marketing their properties. There's a 2-1 buy down, which you can help
3-1. I saw a 3-2
buy
one
downs
that a lender sent me recently. They'll buy down your rates 3 years, and like you said, this too shall pass. So if you're in that situation where it's a must go, you're relocating for work, you're military, whatever that is. It's a now kind of thing. It's not we have the flexibility to wait. There's options. Get with somebody knowledgeable and discuss with the lender, local realtor, ourselves, and figure out what the best option is, because every situation has a solution if you can find somebody to communicate with enough to open up the doors to what those solutions may be.
And if you're a seller and you have one of those 3% interest rates, try to figure out a way to...
Is it assumable?
Yeah, it's assuming. Flip
Yeah.
that whole loan to somebody else. Those are the creative strategies that every professional in the industry is looking for to find solutions for our buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
And the truth is, and I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but the truth of the matter is this is, you can go out and make a pretty significant offer off a list right now, and what we're finding on a regular basis is people will take it. They're understanding that the market's down. Not only that, it's kind of holiday season right now.
Election year.
Interest rates are up. If you go, I hate to use the term lowball, but if you go lowball right now, people are taking them and people are accepting crazy terms. So although interest rates might be high for the next several years, it's likely that they come down, 2-3 years from now. And when that happens, you can always go refinance. But if you need to buy now, you can actually get a better purchase price on the home, and you can counterbalance that even by paying a couple $100 more, $100 more, and reducing the interest every month.
This part, people don't understand what $50 extra a month over your minimum payment does over the course of a 30-year loan. So tens of thousands of dollars by the time you finish.
So all that being said, consult a professional. I'm not going to say it's a great time to buy. I'm not going to say it's a great time to sell, because I think that would be false, but it's not a terrible time either. And there's solutions out there. And if you consult with someone, you can figure it out. I think you can stomach it and calm down a little bit and realize where we're at. So, listen, I think we'll touch more on that on our next episode too, and we'll get back to where real estate is at right now, which is how we'll end every show. For next show, we're gonna have our in-house general contractor. It's actually Andrew's dad, Michael McKelvey, on the show, and we're going to be talking, deep diving into contracting, some of the builds he did over in the Cayman Islands, in water sound and watercolor back in the day, and how he's kind of integrating himself back now that he's in the States into what we're doing and what we have going on with him in-house, and kind of get the contractor's take on the real estate market right now, and ask him some good questions that might help some people out that have some general contracting questions as well.
Super excited to get him over here. Like you just mentioned, the Cayman Islands. We'll keep it brief and leave something out there for people to look forward to in the next episode. But, my dad, for the people who know 30A, he started out in watercolor phase 1 back when watercolor was taking off. He started, when water sound was just getting going, and started, back there in 2003. Went through the same housing crisis in 07, 08, and 09 that some people try to relate what we're in right now to. So he felt that. He had his own contracting company, and he was building custom luxury homes direct to the end user, working daily with that buyer. And that was really the first market that hit. As we know, back in 08, 09, the first market that crashed quick was vacation homes and luxury homes and those secondary properties for people. And so he felt that hard, and
I think that's really pertinent to like what's going on right now, and we can draw definitely some relations to kind of help prepare people based on that too.
It ended up pushing him to the Cayman Islands, man, and he'll elaborate on that. But dude, some of the houses that he built, man, they're spectacular. He infinity pools into the water in the Caribbean, 7,000 square foot houses, multi-levels, multiple kitchens. And so we're super excited to have him back.
Yeah, huge.
Super excited to get him back into Bay County. And
and if you're in Bay County and you're looking for a builder to build a home, we have that now, and he's, to Andrew's point, super experienced, and he'll get into all that on that next show. But we have that in-house now, which is huge.
Yeah, super excited, and happy to hear him tell us some more about that next week.
Yep. And so that's the first episode of It's Personal, an Entrepreneurs podcast. If you're an entrepreneur in Bay County or surrounding areas and you're interested in being interviewed or being on our show, we would love to have you. We're interested in having as many varying opinions and people on the show as possible, so we can get really a well-rounded take from the community, involve people in this. I personally relate back to the name of our podcast. It's personal. This is very personal to me. It's therapeutic for me to be able to talk these things out with two people I love as much as you guys. And I'm really looking forward to having some guests on here. So me, Kurt Fadden, Andrew McKelvey, Crazy Mike.
It's personal.
It's personal. Thanks for tuning in.